The rain was coming down hard, turning the streets into dark rivers of water that rushed along the gutters, flowing past the half-hidden cracks in the sidewalk. It was the kind of night that made everything seem too quiet, the world muffled by the endless downpour. My friend and I were running, our feet slapping against the wet pavement, our hearts pounding in our chests like a war drum. The air tasted sharp and cold, like it was trying to cut through our skin. We hadn't been able to catch our breath for a long time, but we didn't dare stop, not with them behind us. Their laughter, louder now, echoed in the stillness, a cruel taunt. They were getting closer. We didn't have much time. My side burned with every breath, and I could hear my friend's ragged wheezing beside me, but there was no stopping, no looking back. I glanced to the side, catching a flicker of light through the blur of rain, something ahead. My pulse quickened, hope sparking in my chest. The building was crumbling, a hulking structure in the middle of nowhere, the fading neon sign above it barely hanging on, the letters twisted and almost unreadable, Funland Arcade. I hadn't heard of it in years. Everyone knew the stories, the rumors whispered under breaths in the school hallways about how people went in but never came back. The warnings floated around like fog in my mind, but I didn't care. We had no choice. We slid to a stop at the entrance, my friend barely keeping his feet under him as we shoved through the broken doors, the hinges creaking as they gave way. Inside, the world felt heavier, the air was stale and thick like it hadn't been disturbed in years. The sound of rain outside barely reached us, as if the building swallowed it whole. The arcade had that smell, dust, metal, something rotting underneath. It was the kind of place that felt abandoned, but there was a sickening sense that it wasn't entirely empty. A faint hum filled the air, like the machines were waiting for something. I glanced around, and then one by one, the lights flickered on, like something was slowly waking up. The old machines, the ones I remembered from when I was younger, now came to life. They buzzed and hummed, their screens lighting up with static, the sounds of games starting up echoing through the room. It should have been comforting, nostalgic even, but all I could feel was unease creeping up my spine. I grabbed my friend's arm, and we slipped further into the shadows, behind a row of overturned chairs and dust-covered air hockey tables. My heart was still hammering in my chest, but I was trying to catch my breath to focus. "We're safe for now," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I believed it. The bullies hadn't followed us inside. For a moment, everything seemed still again. But then my friend noticed something on the far wall. A whiteboard covered in what looked like hastily scrawled rules. My friend stepped closer, eyes scanning the list, his face going pale as he read them aloud in a whisper. Rule 1. The mascot at the front entrance doesn't move unless there are visitors. If it's missing, it's awake, escape while you can. Rule 2. Do not talk about him. If you do, he will hear you no matter how quiet you are. Rule 3. He is hard of hearing, but too much noise will attract him. Rule 4. There is a birthday party room in the back. The party never ended. Do not enter. Rule 5. The mascot loves hide and seek. If it starts counting, you need to find a hiding spot before it reaches 0. You must stay hidden for 5 minutes. Rule 6. Do not run toward the exit if it's open. The mascot loves when players think they're winning. Rule 7. If an animatronic parrot near the skee-ball machine suddenly starts repeating your name, you have exactly 10 seconds to leave that area before the mascot arrives. It is calling for it. I barely had time to process it before a sharp clang rang out through the arcade. My friend and I jumped, the sound slicing through the stillness like a knife. We froze, panic rising in my chest. I held my breath, my eyes darting around the room. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, followed. My friend's hand tightened around mine and we both tensed, waiting for whatever was coming. Then laughter. It was the bullies. They'd found us. We were still hidden, but they were tearing the place apart, kicking over chairs, slamming arcade machines, making their presence known with every loud noise. One of them pounded on a pinball machine and the glass shattered, the sound of breaking glass so loud it almost made me jump out of my skin. In that instant, the arcade's lights flickered again, flashing violently. The hum that had filled the air grew louder, a deep, thrumming noise that shook the walls. Then screaming. The bullies stopped laughing. The sounds of their taunts turned into shrieks of terror. It all happened so fast. One by one their voices were cut off. I couldn't even move, I was frozen by the horrible sounds. One of the bullies made a break for the exit, but before he could reach it, the doors slammed shut, the sound of metal against metal echoing through the arcade. The entire room went silent. Complete silence. My pulse thudded in my ears and I held my breath, not daring to make a sound. My friend and I exchanged terrified glances. I tried to make sense of what had just happened. The bullies, what happened to them? Where were they? The silence carried on, and then I heard something wet dragging across the floor. Something was moving through the arcade, pulling bodies along. I felt a chill throughout my entire body. I turned back to the whiteboard, my hand shaking as I reached for it. My eyes darted over the rules again, searching for something, anything that could explain what was happening. My gaze locked onto the next rule, Rule 8. If the arcade goes completely silent, do not make a noise. Hold your breath if you have to. We barely had time to process this new rule before we heard it. A soft sound of breathing. It wasn't ours. It was close. Too close. I nudged my friend's arm, both of us too afraid to make a sound. The breathing grew closer. I could feel the air shift as it moved around us, but still, we didn't speak. We waited as we held our breath. I thought I might pass out from holding my breath, but then a sound broke through the silence, a loud crash, like something heavy had fallen, followed by a low groan. I jumped, my heart nearly bursting in my chest. We couldn't stay hidden forever. We had to move to escape. But how? I turned to my friend, my voice a desperate whisper. We have to get out of here. My friend didn't answer. He just gave the slightest nod, barely moving, his breathing still shallow and controlled. The air in the arcade was thick and heavy, pressing down on us like something tangible. The silence stretched, an unbearable weight, as the wet dragging sound slowly faded into the depths of the arcade. Whatever had been pulling the bodies away was gone for now. But that didn't mean we were safe. My chest ached from holding my breath so long, and I forced myself to inhale as quietly as possible, barely allowing my lungs to expand. The room around us felt impossibly vast and yet suffocatingly small at the same time. The flickering neon lights painted strange, shifting shadows across the floor, making it impossible to tell what was real and what was a trick of the artificial glow. I didn't want to move. I wanted to wait, but the rational part of me knew we couldn't stay here forever. If the rules were to be believed, and after what we just heard, I had no doubt they were, then we had to be careful. We had to be smart. We needed to find a way out, but I didn't know where to start. My mind was racing, trying to think through the overwhelming panic clawing at my throat. The arcade was huge, stretching out in all directions with rows of dusty machines and forgotten prizes. There were too many places something could be hiding. Too many places something could be watching. A sudden noise made my blood turn to ice, a mechanical click followed by the whir of something coming to life. I stiffened, my hand clenching into a fist as I turned my head ever so slowly toward the source of the sound. One of the arcade machines near the back had turned on by itself, its screen flickering between static and a looping animation of a pixelated clown waving. The words "insert coin" flashed over and over again in blocky, distorted letters. The clown's eyes were wide, too wide, the grin stretching unnaturally across its face. I swallowed hard. My friend and I exchanged a look. Neither of us had touched the machine. Neither of us had moved. But something had turned it on. Then something else happened. A second machine lit up. Then another. One by one, they began to power on, their bright, outdated graphics flickering to life in chaotic, disjointed bursts. The sounds of old arcade music filled the air, overlapping and clashing in a dissonant way. It was almost like the arcade itself was waking up, stretching its limbs after years of slumber. I felt a cold bead of sweat slide down the back of my neck. Then, over the noise, I heard something else. A soft creak. Not the sound of a machine. Not the hum of old speakers. Something was moving. I turned my head ever so slightly, scanning the arcade, my heart beat a dull roar in my ears. My stomach clenched when I noticed it. The mascot. It had been near the entrance before. A large, grotesque figure dressed in a faded blue and red costume, its oversized head cartoonishly round, painted with a frozen smile. But now it wasn't there. I felt my breath hitch. I knew what the first rule had said. The mascot at the front entrance doesn't move unless there are visitors. If it's missing, it's awake. Escape while you can. I grabbed my friend's wrist, squeezing tight. His eyes were wide, following my gaze, and I saw the realization hit him just as hard. We hadn't heard it move. We hadn't seen it, but it was gone, and that meant it was somewhere inside with us. Another machine powered on, and for a brief second, in the erratic flickering glow, I saw something shift in the reflection of a darkened screen. Not a person, not one of the machines. Something tall. My friend didn't move. We were waiting as our bodies tensed and pressed against the overturned air hockey table. Then, in the noise, we heard it. A voice. A sickeningly sweet, robotic voice, distorted and sluggish, dragging the words out like it had forgotten how to speak. Hide and seek. A clicking noise followed, like the grinding of old gears. Then, in a low, warped tone, 10, it was counting. My blood ran cold. Hide, I choked out, grabbing my friend's arm, yanking him up. 9, we didn't look back. We sprinted toward the darkened rows of arcade cabinets, our footsteps barely audible over the cacophony of glitching sounds and buzzing screens. My heart was hammering against my ribs as we ran past the old snack bar, past the claw machines filled with dust-covered plush toys, past the towering shelves of untouched prizes. 8, I caught sight of something up ahead, an old foam pit, part of a forgotten play area. The kind meant for little kids to jump into, filled with musty, colored blocks. 7, I didn't think. I just moved. I grabbed the edge, swinging myself over, dropping down into the foam, feeling my body sink into the soft mess. My friend followed, disappearing beneath the surface just as I did. 6, I pressed myself as deep as I could, the smell of old plastic and mildew filling my nose. I forced myself to stay still. 5, the noises in the arcade began to change. The machines that had been playing their warped music started to glitch, their sounds cutting in and out, static crackling through the air. 4, then silence. Horrible, suffocating silence. 3, I could hear my own heartbeat. 2, then I heard something else. A deliberate thud. Something heavy stepping onto the foam above us. 1, I sank deeper into the foam, my body rigid, my lungs barely expanding as I tried to control my breathing. The weight of the musty blocks pressed against me, muffling the world outside, but not enough to drown out the sound of something moving above. The foam shifted, compressing under a heavy weight. It was in the pit with us. I could feel it, the way the air seemed to thicken. Rule 5. If it starts counting, you need to find a hiding spot before it reaches 0. You must stay hidden for 5 minutes. I tried to count in my head, but the fear made it impossible. How long had it been? 30 seconds? A minute? I had no way of knowing. All I could do was stay still and pray that it wouldn't find me. A shifting sound, foam blocks sliding against each other. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. It was searching. It wasn't just standing there, it was moving, digging through the foam, pushing pieces aside, looking. Hunting. I squeezed my eyes shut, focusing on the stale plastic smell, anything to keep myself from panicking. My friend was somewhere nearby, buried just as I was, but I didn't know how far. I couldn't see him. I couldn't hear him. That was good, he wasn't making a sound. But the foam was shifting again, the thing above pressing down, moving closer. Then it stopped, right above me. I felt the weight settle over my back, just enough to make my breath hitch. I thought for sure it had found me. I thought any second now I'd feel something grab me, pull me up, but the weight didn't move. It stayed there. Then the weight lifted. The foam shifted again, the thing moving away, and I knew it hadn't left. It was still searching. I forced myself to start counting. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Anything to keep track of time, to keep my mind focused. I couldn't panic now. I had to stay hidden. 5 minutes. I just had to last 5 minutes. A muffled noise somewhere to my left, foam being disturbed. My stomach dropped. It had found something. Not me. Someone else. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then a sudden, sharp sound, foam being torn apart. A rustling, a heavy, wet sound like something being dragged, followed by the slightest gasp of breath. It was faint, barely there, but it was enough. A horrible noise filled the foam pit, something between a growl and a hum. The sound of shifting fabric, of something big moving. Then a struggle. A hand, someone's hand, brushed against my leg beneath the foam, yanked back in an instant. I couldn't tell if it was my friend or someone else. A choked, gurgled sound like someone trying to scream with no air left in their lungs. Then nothing. Silence. The weight of the foam shifted again, and I felt something splash against my arm. It was warm. I didn't want to think about what it was. I kept counting. Don't move. Don't think. Don't breathe too hard. Then footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Moving away. I stayed still. I waited. Then the lights in the arcade flickered. The static hum in the air returned. The game was over. I waited another 30 seconds before I moved, pushing myself up through the foam just enough to break the surface. The arcade was still dim, the flickering glow of the old machines the only source of light. The air was thick, wrong. The pit around me was disturbed, patches of foam missing. And there was no sign of my friend. I swallowed back the rising panic, forcing myself up the rest of the way, scanning my surroundings. The arcade looked the same, but it felt different. Like something had changed. Like something was watching. I turned in cautious movements, my heart pounding, and then I saw it. The mascot. It was standing near the entrance of the foam pit, its head tilted, its body still. Watching me. And in its oversized, bloody hand, it was holding one of my friend's shoes. The shoe dangled from its massive, dirty hand, the laces swaying slightly as if it had just plucked it from the floor. The mascot's grin seemed to be permanently fixed, the fabric around its mouth darkened with something that wasn't part of the original design. My eyes locked onto its face, but it didn't move. It just stood there, as if waiting, as if letting me process what I was looking at. My friend was gone. The realization hit me, my breathing shallow, but I didn't dare make a noise. I could still feel the weight of Rule 8 in my mind. If the arcade goes completely silent, do not make a noise. Hold your breath if you have to. The room was silent now. The only sound was the distant, flickering hum of dying arcade machines. All I wanted to do was bolt for the exit, but I couldn't. Not yet. I didn't know where it was. The thing, whatever it was, had rules it followed, but I didn't know what it would do if I moved. It had found my friend. It had him. And now it was here, standing between me and whatever slim chance I had at getting out. I forced myself to stay still, my muscles locked in place, hoping, praying that if I didn't move, it wouldn't come any closer. But then it did. A single step forward. The shoe slipped from its grasp, hitting the floor with a faint tap. My breath hitched. It took another step, and another. My hands clenched at my sides, my legs aching to bolt, but I knew I couldn't. Not yet. Its movements were smooth now, like it was possessed. Another step. I could hear the faintest creak of its joints, the suit's old fabric straining, the faint scent of something rotten wafting closer. I could see the individual stitches on its oversized gloves, the dark stains around the seams. It towered over me, its head tilting slightly in the other direction now, like it was studying me. My fingers twitched. Then a sound. A rhythmic beeping coming from somewhere behind me. My blood turned to ice. The skee-ball machine. I knew what that meant. My name was about to be spoken. My body tensed as I remembered Rule 7. If an animatronic parrot near the skee-ball machine suddenly starts repeating your name, you have exactly 10 seconds to leave that area before the mascot arrives. It is calling for it. I hadn't heard it yet, but I knew it was coming. The beeping was the machine resetting, waking up, activating. The moment it said my name, the 10 seconds would start. I didn't know what would happen if I didn't make it. I didn't want to find out, but the mascot was still right in front of me. I couldn't risk making a sound. The beeping behind me continued. I could feel sweat sliding down the back of my neck. Then it happened. A scratchy voice, broken, barely working, crackled from across the arcade. "Hello, Austin." "Hello, Austin." The 10 seconds had begun. My body acted before my mind could, my muscles finally snapping out of their frozen state. I spun on my heel, running, bolting through the arcade as fast as I could, not even daring to check if the mascot was following. My shoes slammed against the sticky carpet, dodging old chairs, broken glass, toppled machines. The voice from the parrot continued to repeat my name, its crackling, broken greeting distorted, like it wasn't supposed to be saying it at all. I didn't know where to go, only that I had to leave that area, but where was safe? The rules. I needed the rules. I needed to get back to the board. My eyes darted through the darkness, scanning for the whiteboard, my breath burning in my chest. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it, the birthday party room. The door stood ajar, just slightly, a crack of pitch-black nothingness inside. Rule 4. The party never ended. Do not enter. I yanked my gaze away, forcing myself to focus, to find another path. Then, another voice. A new one. Low, distorted, directly behind me. "Found you." I didn't stop. I didn't look. I only ran faster, forcing my way past old machines, stumbling over debris until finally I saw it. The whiteboard. Still standing at the far side of the arcade, exactly where we had found it. My legs burned as I forced myself forward, barely able to see, my vision swimming from the fear and exhaustion. The parrot had stopped saying my name. I had made it out of range. But I knew something else was right behind me. I could feel it, the way my own movements felt chased. My hands slammed against the whiteboard as I skidded to a stop, my eyes frantically scanning the rules again, desperate for something, anything that would help me survive. And that's when I saw it. The next rule. Rule 9. If the mascot ever says found you, it is no longer playing hide and seek. You must now play a different game. And this one is worse. The arcade, once filled with flickering lights and the occasional hum of old machines, felt silent again. I could feel it behind me, waiting. My muscles tensed, but I didn't turn around. I knew I had seconds, maybe less, before it began, whatever game this was. My mind raced, scrambling to find a way out, something I could use. Then, a word clicked to life, followed by a sharp static crackle. And then, through speakers hidden in the dark, a voice. It wasn't the parrot this time. It was something else. New game, tag? A shiver ran down my spine. I barely had time to react before I felt movement behind me, something fast, something lunging. I threw myself to the side just as a massive, gloved hand slammed into the whiteboard where I had been standing, the impact so hard it sent the entire thing toppling over. My vision blurred as I hit the ground, my shoulder slamming into the sticky carpet. The whiteboard crashed beside me, the old marker rolling across the floor. But I didn't stop. I scrambled to my feet. It wanted to play tag. That meant it wasn't trying to grab me. Not yet. It wanted to chase. I could feel its presence towering over me, the suffocating weight of it, but I knew if I was caught, I wouldn't get another chance. My body acted, launching me forward into the maze of arcade machines. The moment I moved, so did it. Heavy, thudding footsteps shook the ground behind me. I ran faster than I ever had in my life, weaving between broken consoles, nearly slipping on scattered glass, my breath burning my throat. It was right there. I could hear the tearing of fabric, the deep whir of something barely functioning, the sharp thump of its oversized feet pounding the floor. The machines around me flickered wildly, glitching, screens flashing distorted images of smiling mascots. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I had to run. Then, a sound. A beep. The parrot. Again. I was heading straight for the skee-ball machines. My name would be called in seconds, and I couldn't afford to be trapped in another rule. I veered left at the last second, nearly colliding with an old claw machine. My fingers gripped the edge, using it to propel myself forward. Behind me, the mascot laughed. A hollow, warped chuckle that didn't belong to anything human. It's enjoying this. The thought made my skin crawl, but I didn't stop. I sprinted, pushing my body past its limit, searching, desperate for a way out. And then I saw it. The exit. The doors. But my stomach churned again as I remembered Rule 6. Do not run toward the exit if it's open. The mascot loves when players think they're winning. My feet almost stumbled. The doors were slightly ajar. If I ran straight for them, I wouldn't make it. I needed to trick it. A plan formed in my mind. I could hear it closing in behind me, the sound of its breathless movements getting faster. It was enjoying the chase, but I knew its rule now. It was playing tag. And in tag, the game didn't end until someone was caught. But what if it thought I was already out? I ran past the exit. Past it. I veered toward a toppled photo booth near the entrance. At the last second, I threw myself to the ground and slid beneath the booth, vanishing from its direct line of sight. The moment I disappeared from view, everything stopped. The pounding footsteps. The sound of tearing fabric. Even the hum of the machines. My body was shaking, chest heaving, but I didn't move. I waited. Seconds stretched. Then click. A slow, distorted voice crackled through the arcade speakers. Game over. I bit down on my lip so hard I tasted blood. I still didn't move. Then a sound. Dragging. Heavy and quick. It was moving away from me. I kept my body pressed against the floor, forcing myself to stay still, barely believing what I was hearing. It was leaving. My fingers curled into the grimy carpet, my muscles aching from how tense I had been. And then silence. Long, empty silence. I waited longer than I needed to, my ears straining for any sign of movement. When I was finally sure, I moved. Slowly, carefully, I crawled out from under the booth. The arcade was empty. The machines were still, their lights frozen on broken images. The exit doors were wide open now. My body felt like it was moving through water as I forced myself forward. Every step felt wrong, like I shouldn't be walking away, like something was watching me leave. But I didn't stop. The second I stepped through the doors, the air changed. The smell of the arcade disappeared. The damp, rotten stench was gone. The cold, electric hum faded. The night was still. The rain had stopped. My lungs felt like they had never taken in real air before. I turned just once to look at the building. The neon sign, the one that barely clung to life before, was off. Completely dead. The doors gone. Just a wall where they used to be. Like they had never existed at all. My body felt impossibly heavy, but I kept walking. I didn't stop until I was home. Until I locked every door, every window, sat in my room and tried to convince myself that I had made it out. I was home alone that night, so I didn't sleep. And when morning came, I checked my phone. I had dozens of missed messages, but not from my friend. No one had seen him. No one remembered him leaving with me that night. When I tried to tell them, they just looked confused. When I went back to where the arcade had been, it was sitting there. Fear crept back into my body as I realized it had played a game with us. And I had only barely made it out.